Hello and welcome to the first video in the Algebra 1 series. This video will just be an overview of the syllabus of what we hope to cover in these videos. So first we will talk about an introduction to algebra. We'll talk about the foundations of algebra, as well as what things like sets are. We'll also talk about exponent rules and the order of operations rules. We'll also do an introduction on what equations and inequalities are, as these are important concepts throughout the study of algebra. Then we'll move on to linear functions. We'll talk about the basics of these, as well as how to solve them, graph them, and use systems of equations when we have more than one variable we're solving for. On the other side of linear functions, we also have exponential functions. These are similar to linear functions, and we'll talk about the same things we talked about in linear in exponential as well. And we'll also talk about something called the domain and the range. Then we'll move on to polynomial expressions and talk about how to simplify these and how to factor them, getting them down to the simplest form where we can solve from. Then we'll move on to radical expressions and talk about their properties and how to simplify those, and how to rationalize when you have a radical in your denominator. And the last thing we'll touch on in this course is quadratic equations. So we'll talk about how to solve these and how to use what's called completing the square as another method of factoring and solving these problems. So throughout this course, we'll learn to do a lot of things, such as creating graphs that twist and turn, and for solving for these points where our graph crosses the x-axis. Just as an introduction, these points are known as roots, and those give us important values about how the graph works. For example, in this case, we can also talk about the domain and the range talked about here. So the domain is all the x values. You can see that this graph goes across all possible x values. So we say the domain is from negative infinity to positive infinity. And we'll also learn things like how to expand something that looks like this, or how to get something that looks like this into something that looks more like that, where it's simplified down. So I hope you enjoy this course. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below.